Good morning, Dan and Amy. Amy, I have a question for you. When it comes to repulsive couples, you think Hillary and Bill Clinton?
Sure.
You think Uma and Anthony Weiner, Mr. and Mrs. Carlos Danger, excuse me, right?
Yes, that's a little bit more repulsive. Yes.
Now,
You think of Dan and Amy.
Right, exactly. Now, where in that pantheon of revolting couples
Yes.
does
Yes.
Mr. and Mrs. Bob Creamer fit in?
I don't know.
It's tough to rank them. It's very competitive.
You're throwing me for a loop.
Well, I'll tell you what. If you're here in the Chicago metro area, you may not be able to go protest repulsive couple number one, Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton. You may not be able to go protest in person, Uma and the Wiener. But you can protest Creamy Bob and his wife, Jan Schakowsky.
Okay, don't say creamy. Gross.
Because there is a march to Jan Schakowsky's Evanston office at 820 Davis Street in Evanston today at 11 a.m. And it'll continue up Davis to the Evanston post office to protest Bob Creamer, convicted felon, husband of Calamity Jan Schakowsky.
Trademark Proft.
Thank you. And also implicated, had to step away from the Hillary campaign, implicated on video, those undercover videos that James O'Keefe did in participating in the incitement of violence, and also suborning voter fraud.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, go out
where's
go
everyone
out to the
meeting?
Evanston office at 820 Davis Street in Evanston at 11 a.m. today, and you can protest the collective. Just use Creamy Bob and Calamity Jan.
Stop saying the word creamy. It's so gross.
As a surrogate for all of those repulsive couples.
Okay, I'll do it if you stop using the word creamy.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. Now, on to matters related, going back to Mr. and Mrs. Carlos Danger. And since Jim Comey reopened the email investigation, got the search warrant, is now poring over the emails on the Danger household computer, the Dems have changed their tune a little bit. Listen to what leading Democrats you may recognize, like, I don't know, Tim Kaine and Hillary Clinton and President Obama and Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid and Elijah Cummings had to say about Jim Comey back in July when he announced that no reasonable prosecutor would pursue a case against Hillary Clinton.
What I do know is this, that there was an extensive, as you know, Brett, investigation by the FBI under the direction of a wonderful and tough career public servant, Jim Comey. He's somebody with the highest standards of integrity.
I think Director Comey could not have been more exhaustive.
I am grateful for the professionalism of the FBI and the Department of Justice.
This is a great man. We are very privileged in our country to have him be the director of the FBI.
No one can question the integrity, the competence.
I don't know whether your family's watching this, but I hope that they are as proud of you as I am.
Wow, it's tearful, Elijah Cummings. I'll tell you what.
He had tears in his eyes.
Harry Reid, no one can question his integrity. That's the same Harry Reid that sent him a letter on Friday saying he wants to put him in Senate prison for violating the Hatch Act. Boy, oh boy, isn't it interesting? Well, for more on this topic, let's talk to an expert in the field. He is a former Republican member of the House. He is a former FBI agent. He's now host of the show Declassified on CNN. He is Mike Rogers, and he joins us now. Mike, thanks so much for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Dan and Amy, always good to be here.
So the divided
opinion. Please do stop saying creamy.
Yes,
thank you.
I think we can get consensus on that. Yeah. So the divided opinion, even among former Republican Department of Justice officials, including former attorneys general, about whether Comey did the right thing on Friday or not. Do you have an opinion on that, or is it kind of unknowable until we know what he knows?
I think it's a little bit unknowable. I think he made a big mistake when he dipped his toe into the political fray the first go-round, when he listed all the things that she had done wrong and then said no prosecutor would prosecute. The very fact that he put the FBI in the position of having to be this political arbiter of this really thicket was a mistake. But here's the thing that I think is getting missed by everybody today. There was an article, I think it came out Sunday night, at about 8 o'clock, Devlin Barrett from the Wall Street Journal, where he talked to sources in the FBI and found that there were multiple jurisdictions in the country where agents came across information to investigate the Clinton Foundation and were pushed back by the FBI. I found that shocking. I had never heard that the foundation was ever even under consideration for investigation by the FBI or the Justice Department. So now, to me, that was the biggest bombshell of the week. And now everybody wants to make it about Jim Comey, including the Democrats. And there's a purpose they do that, for the distraction. Hillary Clinton got us here. Hillary Clinton put the FBI in this position in the first place by her activities, actions, and lawlessness. And now we find out that within the FBI there was angst of why we didn't go after the Clinton Foundation, because they had clearly had enough for at least a preliminary investigation. So that means the email would be one investigation. The Clinton Foundation pay for play would have been a separate investigation. I think that's shocking.
I know. Do you think maybe there's possibly something in these new batch of emails that would implicate the Clinton Foundation?
Well, you have to wonder, but I think if you listen to the FBI director's message on this, it's very narrowly tailored to just the classification issue on the previous investigation. So, candidly, I think that's a bit of a cop-out on this investigation. So here's what I think happened that I can piece together. The agent's separate case. They open up he volunteered his laptop. They probably secured a subpoena just in case to make sure that there was no legal challenge later. They get the information. One of those agents peers over the top of that thing and says, "Ooh, look at the address of this. All of these emails." It happens to be the private server from the Clinton home in New York City. That's a problem. He calls the head agent, who has nothing to do with the sexting investigation in Washington, D.C., says, "Hey, I have this issue. You might want to come look at it." He apparently goes to New York, peers over and says, "Ooh, yeah, that's a problem. It does relate." They looked at it for some period of time, came back and briefed the director. That tells me that there's more to this than, gee whiz, we just don't know. And the director had some obligation, because he had previously testified before Congress, that he would update them if there were any further updates to the investigation if they were doing anything. He was between a rock and a hard spot. I mean, I think he got himself into it when he started the first time. But we are here because of the content of the emails, not just emails. That's what I think we got to talk about in the next few days.
Let me ask you two related questions that call for speculation. But one is, you're talking between a rock and a hard place. The chances that his hand was forced because, as you were mentioning, local FBI investigators pursuing essentially concurrent cases, or extending from the investigation that was suspended by Comey after he decided not to go forward and refer charges. The idea that he was going to essentially get jumped by local FBI offices. And number two, the likelihood that there has to be something there on that Weiner Abedin computer that is actionable, that he would not make the announcement he made if this was just an open-ended fishing expedition, ultimately recognizing that at some point he's going to have to prove up what is or is not on that computer.
I would like to think that rational behavior would say that is exactly true, Dan. I just worry a little bit. If he applies the same legal standard of extreme carelessness, by the way, which is not a legal standard, then he's going to find the same thing. In that regard, Hillary Clinton running around the country saying, "I already looked at this and I didn't do anything wrong." Well, I got to believe that there is just more to that story. Otherwise, why would you put yourself through all this misery? Although I do believe that, according to that article, there are multiple agents saying, "Hey, something is not right here." And the FBI prides itself on its non-partial its non-partiality in these kinds of efforts, and that it is that final institution that can investigate for the sure purpose of protecting the rule of law in the United States. That gets jeopardized when the director does the kind of silly things that he has done. And so those agents, I'm sure, are honked off. I don't think if there's any foundation issue in that particular email, we'll do anything because of the very tailored way he said this is about classification issue. We're going to see if there's any classified information there.
As a former FBI agent, do you talk to any of your coworkers? Or former agents? Do you know what the atmosphere is like there at the Bureau right now?
Well, most agents out in the field, the Chicago division, which I served, and they're doing great work, they're going to put their heads down and do their work. They really are. They may grumble about it. Get by the coffee pot in the morning, and you'll hear a little grumbling. But they're professionals. They're going to do their thing. It's at headquarters you worry about. What's going on in headquarters? I haven't really talked to anybody there on purpose. But you got to wonder, with these agents out in the field who had this information, now that's how you get people honked off. I have this information, enough information for at least a preliminary investigation into what some would argue fits the bribery statute, and not do it. That's a problem because they've got other bribery cases they're going to have to do that are far less. That have far less information. I mean, when you look at all of the foundation emails coming out, it is a very clear relationship between Teneo, the company, the Secretary of State's office, the foundation, and Bill Clinton's personal cash for speeches. I mean, I've never seen such an overwhelming amount of evidence, at least circumstantial evidence, on the top, and not be an investigation. Unbelievable.
We're talking to Mike Rogers, former Michigan congressman, a former FBI agent, now the current host of the show Declassified on CNN. Also former, well, you're a member of Commerce, the chairman of the House Intel Committee. And so I want to get your take on this piece of it, too. You mentioned WikiLeaks, and that's been a bit subordinated by the announcement on Friday, of course. But one of the John Podesta emails comes from Tom Nides, the former Deputy Secretary of State for Management and Resources, and he says, you know as well as I, every GD cabinet officer and White House staff uses their Gmail account, suggesting that two things that are concerning. One, that he behaves like a third grader and thinks that if everybody does it, it makes something okay. Number two, if he's in fact correct that everybody who is handling classified information is using a Gmail account that can be hacked, just like John Podesta's or potentially Hillary Clinton's was. How do you react to that disclosure?
Well, and it's terrifying. They are creating this culture of I get to do what I want because I don't want people, I want to go outside of the normal rules of whatever department that is in the handling of classified information. That's exactly how you lose sensitive information to our adversaries. And clearly, I know everybody's attacking, I think this is almost comical, in a McCarthyism style way. They're attacking, Trump must have some relationship with the Russians. That's what this is about. And now the FBI director. I mean, it is absolute nonsense. But the fact that the Russians did get this information because of the way that Hillary Clinton carried herself, and if you recall, the FBI director a little while ago said, well, we can't prove that they have it. Well, if the intelligence community just came out and said, they being the Russians, if they came out and said, well, we think it's the Russians, doesn't that prove that the FBI director was wrong in his testimony to Congress? Apparently now you can prove that she caused information that is sensitive to be in the hands of our adversaries. If that is the standard, by the way, we have a really distinguished general officer, a guy named Cartwright, a senior general officer from the United States Marines. I knew him and worked with him. He's a class act, a patriot. The guy was smart as heck. He's probably going to go to jail over confirming a story that the press already had on a sensitive operation. Now, he shouldn't have done it. He'll have to pay a price for it. But it was small in comparison to the sheer volume of what Hillary Clinton and all of her employees just did, and this notion that, everybody does this. This is okay. It's not okay. That's how people get killed overseas. That's how we lose sensitive information and give our adversaries a leg up on the kinds of things we're doing to protect the country. That's what's so concerning about this whole thing.
He is Mike Rogers, former Michigan congressman and former FBI agent, host of the show now on CNN called Declassified. Check it out. Mike Rogers, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Dan and Amy, always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.